Good morning, everybody. Welcome along to this slightly earlier than usual morning rabble, and it's a slightly changed to the format as well. You've got me with you today. That's Wilf instead of Martin. We're going a little bit early, excuse me, because we're going to have a couple of special guests joining us very shortly. They're having one or two technical issues, so they'll be with us in just a couple of minutes. Today's morning rabble is to review the book that you can see beside me here, Believer in Blue, the Marvin story, written in conjunction with Rangers historian and esteemed Rangers author David Mason. So I'm hoping in a few minutes we'll be joined by David himself and the main man, Mr. Andrews. So while we're waiting for them, I'm going to do what Martin would call a bit of filler. Obviously, if you're watching live on YouTube, could you like, and if you haven't already subscribed, if you could subscribe, that would be wonderful. If you'd like to help the pod out with becoming a member, the link is in the description, I believe. If you're on a computer, it will be underneath. If you're on your phone, you need to actually go into the page and you'll find it there. So that gives you access to a lot more members content. We do member shows, watch all that sort of stuff. So it's a slightly earlier edition of the Morning Rabble today. Don't forget, get your comments in. If you've got any comments for David or Martin once we start talking about the book, I'll do my best to get them in. I'm not sure how well I'll do because I am here myself. I don't have a producer in the background like Martin does. He messes about with all that. Morning, Donald. How are you? Good to see you. As I say, hopefully David and Marvin will be here very soon. But going away from what we're going to be talking about, it was nice to finally get a decent performance. To be back at Ibrox on Saturday was absolutely magnificent. It's really good to be back. I was a bit disappointed personally in the crowd, but it was a great performance. Two really good team goals, and obviously the penalty, which Tav struck away expertly. I know he's over the piece, he's missed one or two, but he took that one really, really well. And I am delighted to say, ladies and gentlemen, that I can stop talking absolute nonsense, because I'm delighted to say we are joined live from the magnificent Ibrox Stadium by the author of this book, Mr. David Mason, and the subject of the book, Mr. Marvin Andrews. Gentlemen, good morning.
How you doing? Good morning, how are you all?
Very good, very good. So we're actually doing this live on YouTube. I never got a chance to tell you that because you were having a few issues getting on. So we're actually live to the world on YouTube. So hopefully we'll have one or two people tuning in from Trinidad, from Marvin's homeland. So
that means there'll be no swearing then.
I'm assuming that everybody watching will be well aware who Marvin is, the man with the brightest smile in Scottish football. David, could you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Obviously, I know who you are and what you do and things. But could you just tell everybody a bit of who you are and how you got involved in writing Marvin's book?
I'm the club historian at Rangers. I've been here since 1986. I've written a few books in the past, programme articles, whatever, just basically answer questions for the fans a lot of the time. Just basically you're doing various things, museums, the latest big project I was involved in, whatever. But I do enjoy writing. And about a year ago, maybe more than that, Marvin expressed an interest in writing a book. He'd done one before, and he said, I'm looking for someone to do it. And I was kind of tied up in other things at that time. But eventually I thought, it'd be a good book to write because I want to find out more about him. I knew Marvin well, obviously working in the hospitality here at Ibrox, but it gave me an opportunity to really understand what Marvin was all about. Because although we met and he was the way everybody sees him, there was so much more to him, in terms of how his character developed from his background and from his experiences elsewhere. So that's basically how it came around, and it was a fascinating exercise. I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, so David, sticking with you, I know you as you see, you've done a few other books. I know you did the Penalty King and Johnny Hubbard book. Recently there's been a few books out of Rangers players of the past where you can't actually speak to the player because unfortunately they're no longer with you, like Toddy Gillick and things like that. Do you find it easier as a writer, actually having the subject to speak to? And if you do that, how you know, do you get the stories then fact check it, or do you go? Did you go to Marvin and say, "Here's what I know about your life and career," or did you let him tell you and then just go back and fact check it all?
Well, I've done. I wrote about Bill Struth, for example, as well, Mr. Struth, along with Ian Stewart, and when I wrote Johnny Hubbard's book, Johnny was still alive, of course, as well, but Johnny was starting to suffer from dementia, so I had to fact check a lot of his stuff as well. And as I've said to a lot of people at the time, that was almost like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, because it was, he was giving me the pieces, but they weren't necessarily in the right order, to use that phrase. so I had to pull that together. But the great benefit of having the guy beside you is you can get the facts, of course. No, these are easy bits to pick out, but you start to understand what the character's about, which you can never get if you're writing about someone who's long passed. So in that sense, it did really help to know Marv, to get to know him a bit deeper, and to really understand just where he came from. So in that sense, I hope that through the book, his character emerges, and what you see is what you get with Marvin. He's such a lively character. Always got a smile on his face, as you said at the beginning, and uplifting. A lot of the players that I spoke to, because I did speak to a lot of players in advance of it as well, former colleagues, managers, whatever, and everyone said the same, that Marvin was an uplifting character.
Yeah, I mean that comes through in the book. I mean, Pitch were nice enough to send me a copy of the book. Pitch Publishing, who published the book, and I'm not particularly a book reader, as I always say on these things, but I do like reading books about football players, particularly guys I'm interested in. And I mean, obviously, I know yourself, David. I know Marvin. Marvin's character does come through in the book the way it's written. I mean, you can actually hear Marvin telling the stories. You know what I mean? So, and it's to me that's really good. So, Marvin, why David Mason? Why did you take David Mason? Did he just happen to be there?
I probably.
You go with the phrase, God put people in the right places at the right time. Obviously, I wrote a book before, as David said, in 2006, when I left Rangers, went back to Raith Rovers. Obviously, I was looking to, play again and stuff like that. And then obviously, the ex Prime Minister, Mr. What's his name? Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown, obviously, he was he's a massive Raith Rovers fan. He said to me, Marv, I'd love you to come back to Raith, obviously to help the club get back to where they need to be, and obviously you'll help me write my autobiography at the same time. Obviously, and that's how it all started. So I did the autobiography, wrote it, and then obviously it wasn't published properly. A lot of people didn't know I had a book out or autobiography out. So I felt within my heart, that I should, rewrite a book again and, get it published properly and stuff like that. And obviously, because I work with Dave, obviously I know Dave wrote a few books and he did a lot of stuff for other players at Rangers. So I just asked him the question, and obviously, he gave me some information, and he said, yeah, he can do it. As he said before, he was tied up with a lot of different stuff. But he said, obviously, it took time. He ended up getting the old book, read it through, and he saw where he could expand and do different things in this book that we've written at this moment. So that's why I felt within my heart to do it at this present time, and not knowing, obviously, with all the stuff that's been into the book, come next year May will be 20 years of Helicopter Sunday. So I don't know. It's all about. Or if it was it was all about timing, and only God alone knows, as I said.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say we didn't do it, and Marvin didn't do it with a view to that timing, particularly because I think, although you'd done the book in 2006, a lot had happened in Marvin's life, in footballing life, since then as well. So it was important, really, it was the next stage of his life that helped to not complete it, of course, but to help to evolve it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, reading through the book, Marvin, the first thing that struck out for me was you're from a very, very big family. I mean, I had no reason to know that you were or you weren't, but That struck me as amazing that you're from such a big family.
Yeah. Well, obviously I grew up with my dad. Obviously, my mom and dad had me and my other brother, and then obviously I have other brothers and sisters on my mom's side, another couple brothers on my dad's side. So generally, with my mom, there's 9 of us. For my mom, I'm the oldest of all the 9 of us. Of all the brothers and sisters I have, I'm the firstborn. I'm the lucky one. So I came from a big family, not only on my side, but obviously generally with my dad's family, a big family as well. So I come from a naturally big family, but as I said, I enjoyed a lot being the oldest and like a big brother, to most of my sisters and brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to touch too much on what's in the book because the whole point of this is to let people be aware of the books here and, and go out and buy it. There's no point in us just going right through it and saying, this is what's in the book because nobody will buy it. And it is, by the way, folks, it's really worth the cover price of, I think it's 25 quid, but it's really worth that because it's a tremendous read. I mean, obviously, Marvin, we all know you're from Trinidad, a wee place called San Juan, near Port of Spain. Brought up by your grandmother, as you say, a few family issues. David, I noticed the book sort of starts with Helicopter Sunday, as Marvin she's talked about. It's kind of 20 years next year, so it's that magnificent day, and it got me thinking about Helicopter Sunday. And if you speak to people about it who are maybe a wee bit too young to remember it, everybody knows Marvin was involved in that simply because of the phrase he coined, "Keep believing." And obviously that's got a lot to do with the title of the book, I would imagine.
Yeah. See, the thing about it was that for me, Helicopter Sunday epitomised Marvin really in every aspect. His determination, never give up. And obviously with his great faith as well that things will work out, which is something we hold on to at Ibrox all the time anyway. When you get through bad times, you always know that there'll be some good times around the corner. So from that perspective, Marvin's strength of character was important not just to him, but was important to the team and his teammates. And that's why when I was putting the structure of the book together, I felt, well, let's cover this right away because this is how people see Marvin. And so it's a case of really dealing with that, what was happening behind the scenes then, and also then from that to give people an understanding of how Marvin got to that position, and then of course thereafter. So that was the whole purpose of hitting it with that. But as I say, really, Marvin will come in here, as he'll tell you, every match day, and people keep shouting, keep believing to him.
Yeah, I have actually witnessed that. Obviously, I see yourself and Marvin about the place quite a lot. Even on Saturday there, I bumped into Marvin before the game on Saturday, and there's folk coming up, and you've got young kids getting photos with him and stuff, and they obviously know who he is from that. Which Marvin, that must be fantastic for you to still be recognised, particularly by the the younger element of the support.
Yeah, well, as David said, it epitomized of what I did here at Rangers Football Club. There's a lot of players who came here and obviously achieved great things at Rangers with the Barca Bears who won the European Cup. Obviously the other the 9 in a row. All these are significant moments in Rangers Football Club history, and for me to be part of that history now with obviously the Helicopter Sunday and the famous phrase "Keep believing, don't give up." It makes me feel very humble and very honored to be part of this this amazing club, this phenomenal institution. So it's a great thing to see. And as I said, most of the young people today, obviously thanks to obviously social media, that they can go on YouTube or they can go and see what Helicopter Sunday is about because their parents may tell them about it and and stuff like that. So the good thing about it is that they can go back to YouTube or they could go back on social media and see what is done. But as I said, it makes me feel very humble to be part of the history of this club in such an amazing way. As I said, coming from a small island of Trinidad and Tobago, 1.2 million people to come into such an amazing country and obviously amazing football club.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes me as, you've played for 14 clubs in your career. You were at Wraith Rovers 3 times, but you always, gravitate back to Rangers. Now, I know that was your your most successful time because you won a league title with us 2005, and you won the League Cup with Livingston. And by the way, how did Livingston win the League Cup? I mean, come on, that's just incredible. I mean, that a lot of people won't realise that you were involved in it, but a lot of people won't realise that Livingston won the League Cup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never mind that you were involved in it.
Yeah, well, you see, and that's the thing about it, as David said, the belief and my faith and stuff that I have, because what people they don't realize when Livingston win that cup, the club was in administration.
Yep.
You understand? So a lot of people didn't know that a lot of players wasn't there. A lot of players lose their job. So the club was in a really difficult place at that time, despite going on to win that League Cup. So it was such an amazing achievement for the club. But not only that, but in the way we have achieved it with the club being in administration at the same time. So it was just an amazing, obviously, achievement to come and do that. And as I said, nobody had Livingston, because most people know Livingston, as a small club, many, many years ago, before they come to Livingston, before they will rename and call Livingston Football Club. I think they were Meadowbank Thistle or something like that. They came up the leagues, obviously Livingston Football Club. And the thing with Livingston, because where their place is obviously the in between Edinburgh and Glasgow, which is not in the best place to be. But as I said, to come and win that League Cup that year was absolutely amazing for the club and everybody associated with Livingston Football Club.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, your faith as well would have gone a long way, to help them, all the players involved in that get through. And David, that's something else that really comes through in the book. I mean, Marvin's faith, it's touched on it all the way through, but it's not, you'll maybe get a lot of books about people with the beliefs that Marvin's got, and they kind of ram that down your throat. But that's not the case in this. It's mentioned, but it's just a kind of, this is what Marvin is, because everybody knows he's a man of faith.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, Marvin could have written another book, a book that was dedicated to faith. But the purpose of this book was to explain Marvin's life and his career, and how the thread of faith runs through that, which is what we did, and it gave him a chance to, in our discussions, to consolidate my understanding of his faith as well, because a lot of it was understanding where he was coming from and how he got there and whatever. And although it did begin in Trinidad through his grandmother and attending church at that time, probably when he got to Raith Rovers, that's when, especially the faith healing aspects, that's when that really started to take on another mantle. But I think it's been so important to the other players as well at the time when they played. Barry Ferguson wrote the foreword, as you probably saw.
Yep.
And someone said to me just fairly recently, in fact, Barry has changed. Now, when I spoke to Barry about that, he said, well, yeah, I probably have a bit. Because, as Marvin said to me, Barry would fall out with 10 people before he even got to training. But it allowed players to reflect through Marvin's beliefs, and to start questioning themselves and to start asking key questions of their own character. So I think in that sense, although the book is about Marvin, it's also about the impact he's had in the team and his teammates over the period.
Yeah, I mean, that comes through. I mean, Marvin, as David says, you were brought up in a fairly religious thing, back in Trinidad. But it's when you got to Kirkcaldy at Raith Rovers, was it Tony Rougier that introduced you to the Zion praise with Dr. Joe?
Yeah. So obviously, that's what happened. I always believed in God and stuff. Obviously, I came to Scotland in February 1998 when I signed for Raith Rovers Football Club. And obviously, Tony Rougier was, thankfully, he was still in Kirkcaldy at that time. And one Sunday he told me, Marv, let's go to church. And I was like, yeah, fine, because I believe in God. And that's where I met Pastor Joe. It's this church that I still go to at this present time in Kirkcaldy. And obviously, I learned a lot about, faith in God and belief in God. And I know how David say to believe God, that God can heal you from an injury or sickness or illness. So I learned these things, over time by going to church regularly in Zion Praise Center in Kirkcaldy. And obviously, it helped me to become the man that I am today. and it will continue to help me to become better on as life goes on in my life. But that is like, as I said to Dave in the book, and it's like the foundation of my life. And without foundation, you can't build a beautiful building or a strong structure without foundation. So, and that's what it is about when it comes to my faith.
Yeah, and for me, your faith is epitomised. Go back to Helicopter Sunday, and we pulled off what basically was a minor miracle, winning that league title. You know, and I was lucky enough to be at Easter Road that day. And obviously, there's a delay between the game finishing and the trophy getting presented when the helicopter changed direction, all that stuff. But you were already committed to, you know, going to your church that evening. So you did that, despite the fact that the team were going back to Ibrox to have a major party. You just went, no, I still need to do this. I need to go back to Kirkcaldy. And there's an iconic photo that most people will have seen of you sticking out on Easter Road. And I have to admit, I must have been standing beside the guy that took the photo, because I remember it, and I was in front of the car at the time. I mean, that to me, that just sums up your faith, that you could have just went, you know, something, I'm going to party with my pals here. You know what I mean? But no, I've got to go back and, you know, help Pastor Joe out.
Yeah. As I said, the main thing was just to go back to church, just to acknowledge God for what he did that day. Because, you know, when you look at it, you know, I said it in the book, when you look at it on the whole and from a physical standpoint, Marvin Andrews should not be on the football pitch. It's as simple as that. Because of the knee injury that I suffer, which I should have been out, I should have had a surgery and been in the hospital or be in recovery, but I was on the football pitch 6 weeks later, after I suffer what you want to call is a career-threatening injury, and is also an injury that is so acute that most people who suffer that injury, the minimum you're out for is 9 months to a year to recover back. So with me being on that pitch alone was a miracle in itself. And then to compound that miracle on top of that, we won the league in such a miraculous way. So I couldn't do anything else but just to go back to church and tell God thank you. And that was the main reason of me going back to church. It's not because it's just a religious thing that I do, but it was the main purpose is just to thank God. Because when you look at it on the whole, whether you believe in God or not, or whether you are religious or not, it was a miracle in itself. There is nothing that any one of us could do physically to change the direction of the helicopter apart from God himself. So that's the way I look at it, that it was a miracle in itself. And I just had to go to church just to tell God thank you. And that was the main reason going back to Kirkcaldy on that wonderful day. Obviously, it took me a wee time to get to Kirkcaldy, obviously with the delay of the fans on Easter Road, because they started to do the bung seat my minister car. From doing the bung seat my minister car, they started to line down in the middle of the road and say, Marv, we believe, run over us. So they wanted my minister to run over the car with them because they believe. So it was just an honestly unbelievable experience on Easter Road that day, trying to go through the blue sea of Rangers fans to get to church. So
yeah. Listen, Wilf, don't feel that they didn't party. After they left church, you came down to Tiger.
I went to
Tiger.
I was getting to that. I was getting to that. And David, I was going to say as well, David, have you pulled the rest of the squad up for not keeping the promise and going to church with them?
This is what I'm saying. Most of my teammates didn't keep their promise. Obviously, I kept my promise to God that I would thank him no more. So obviously, I went to Tiger with the boys. Obviously, it was an emotional moment as well, because I think as I walked in the room in Tiger, everybody just stopped and applauded me. And as I said, it was such a humbling moment and a surreal moment where the whole of all the players, all the staff, and everybody just stand, because I walked in. Obviously, I had my T-shirt with God, nothing is impossible on, and everybody was just in awe of me when I walked through Tiger that later that evening.
Yeah, I mean it was an incredible day, but I don't want to just talk too much about Helicopter Sunday, because everybody's aware of that, and it is quite major in the book, because it's a major part of your career with Rangers and the faith and stuff. But I mean, the thing that I didn't realise was, David, that he was three times at Wraith Rovers, Marvin. And what really got me, I had no idea that there was at one point a Marvin Andrews Youth Development Trust. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, that started off Marvin, but it kind of fell by the wayside, not through Marvin's, efforts or lack of them or whatever. But I think it's probably symptomatic of life. That when things don't become that popular and council lose interest and funding starts to drop away, then I think that's basically what happened, wasn't it, Marvin?
Yeah, I'll say, it was all in a build up, as Gordon Brown, he was the chancellor back then before he went on to be the prime minister. So with him behind it, obviously a lot of people had interest and they came on board and stuff like that. But as I said, the continuation of it just gradually fell apart, because by then, as I said, Gordon Brown was the prime minister of the country. He had more important things to do. He left, I think, some people in charge to try to run the youth development stuff in Concordia and stuff. But as I said, as time go about, it just faded away, and that was it. But that was one of the main reasons he asked me to come back to Rate to help build Rate and build the community again, as where the town and the club should be at that time.
Yeah, and David, going back to the writing the book, in the book you touched on it at the start that you've got comments. Obviously, Barry Ferguson did the forward. I mean, I get the impression there's a really good relationship between him and Marvin, and why wouldn't it be? I mean, Marvin's a lovely guy, But you've got comments in there from Alec McLeish, who's easy enough to get hold of, I'd imagine. Leo Benhacker, how difficult, how easy or difficult was it to get hold of him?
Through Marvin, all these most of the contacts came through Marvin. Obviously, people I knew myself. It would be a case of when I knew they were appearing in the narrative, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, I know that guy. I'm going to give him a call, whatever. And sometimes they referred me on to someone else as well. Actually, one of the funniest ones when we did the launch with Marvin, it was with Alec Ray, and said, "Alec, will you come and do the launch with Marvin?" He said, "Of course I will." He said, "But I tell you what, I'm going to have him because he was my." He was my roommate. He says he never asked me to do the forward. So again, I know Alec very well. I've had quite chats with Alec about him, and Alec, obviously, it's good chatting about Alec with the team at the moment, apart from anything else. But again, it was nice to actually speak to these guys away from Marvin to understand what things were like at that time.
Yeah, I mean, there's one or two comments coming in. I'm not putting too many of them up because I find it difficult to read and talk at the same time. But there's a comment there from Make Rangers Great again. Just listening to Marvin picks the soul up. Can he take over the team talks now, please? I don't think that's necessarily what the team seems to be on the up the last few games. So I know Marvin is still around Ibrox, so if they do need him, I'm sure he would be there to do that for them. But I mean, the other thing that got me as well, I mean, Marvin, I knew when you were going about towards the end of your career, you sort of went around the lower leagues a bit, but I had no recollection of you going to Wales.
Say that again?
Wales. I had no recollection of you going to Wales, ended up at Wrexham. I had no clue.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I couldn't believe it. But my mate Dennis Lawrence, who was my centre half partner for Trinidad and Tobago national team, obviously he played there. So he played there for a bit. So obviously his agent at that time, obviously he spoke to me and he said, Marv, I can get you a stint at Wrexham. And obviously I went down. Dean Saunders was the manager, a Liverpool legend. Obviously, I sort of went down there, met Dean, and he said, Marv, yeah, we'd love to have you. And I went down there for a year, had a phenomenal time. I used to get the weekends off to come back up in Scotland on the train. I head back down Monday morning to get the train in for 10 o'clock, get an early train. So I had a really, really good time in Wales. And as I said, it was a great experience for me to play in the lower leagues down there. It was really competitive. Every game was a competitive and strong game. But as I said, I just wanted to continue playing till I'm 40 years of age. That was my ultimate dream. As I said, from the day I decided to be a professional footballer.
Yeah, and I mean, you did go all around the houses. I mean, Queen of the South, Kirkintilloch, Rob Roy. I remember the David, you remember that as well. There was a bit of kind of Marvin Andrews playing at Kirkintilloch. That was a bit.
I remember it because I come from Kirkintilloch, so I knew it pretty well. But I think one of the things that emerged when I spoke to all these players, and one of the reasons why Marvin could play for such a long time, and it was one of his goals was to play right up to his 40 and beyond, was his fitness, obviously. But the other thing, every manager I spoke to said that no one would beat Marvin in the air. That was his big strength. So if they needed to strengthen up the centre of defence, to win any cross balls that come in. Marvin was the guy who did it. But of course, when he had that initially, and then consolidating that afterwards with the experience he gained in the game, it was perfect for all of these smaller teams as well. But just he's built like a man mountain, as you can see. He's still enormous.
Yeah, I think you still do a job. I mean, I know, Marvin, I know you still turn out in a lot of the charity games. You know, you play in the old firm select games and things like that. You were over in Tenerife just a couple of weeks ago at the ERSA convention. You know, doing your bit. It leads me on to something else, because I used to really look forward to my Twitter on a Friday to see what Marvin was singing about. But Marvin stopped singing on a Friday.
Yeah, because what has happened now, when you pop stuff on Facebook and stuff, they mute it or they take it down because of copyright. So that's the reason why I stopped for the Friday sing song. So to all my Fabulous Fridays listeners who used to listen to me on my sing song Friday, that's the reason why I stopped, because obviously the copyright and I put it up on like what you call X on Twitter. They used to just take it down, or they just used to mute it, or they used to ban me. So I was in Twitter jail for a couple weeks. So that's why I stopped doing it, because obviously the social media now, obviously they're doing you in for copyright of the songs and stuff like that. So I just had to stick to karaoke in bars and stuff like that now.
Do you know one of the things that really surprised me, and you probably read this in the book at the start as well, that Marvin was very shy when he was younger. Now, can you imagine him being shy?
Yeah, I mean,
you know, he's onto the stage. He's in the stage shows and everything.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I always say to people about Marvin, we were lucky to have Marvin up here in Aberdeen at one of our Erskine dinners, and David, I know you've been to a couple of them as well. And the reason we got Marvin up, he was a sort of an extra guest tagged on just to be there and press flesh with people. But people just ignored everybody else and went to Marvin. It was great. They just wanted to speak to Marvin. I mean, he's got that infectious personality. You know, the biggest smile in football for me. You know.
Well, you can imagine the impact of that had in a dressing room as well. And getting back briefly to Helicopter Sunday, that was a huge part of it. You know, and obviously keep believing is important, but just to lift the players, to get their whole demeanour in the right way for that big match, because a lot of them didn't believe. A lot of them getting into that game didn't think they would do it. You know, and they were moping around the dressing room at half time. They knew Celtic were 1-up, Rangers were 0-0. Thought this is not going to happen, but Marvin's the man that was going round the dressing room, so he's such a big infectious character. And even when we have our match day briefings, every match day we come in here 4 hours before kickoff. Marvin just up at his bed at that time. So we come in at that time, and as soon as Marvin walks in, well, in fact, you hear him before you see him. It's just such a wide character, lively character.
I mean, that day in Helicopter Sunday, Marv, if you were in the dressing room at half time, I wish you'd come into the Rangers end at half time, because we were all desolate. We were all thinking, it's just not happening. Out of the love of it. But I mean, it was, just incredible. But I mean, touching on your international career, I mean, was it 102 caps for Trinidad? But the World Cup passed by. That must have been an absolute joker for you.
Yeah, well, as I said to people that, 2005 is probably one of the greatest year in my footballing career. Because, as I said, it started off with my knee injury. I came back from that 6 weeks later, played for Rangers, helped Rangers win the league. And then 2 months later, went on to help my country qualify for the first ever World Cup in the country history. To play a two-legged playoff against Bahrain. And as I said, what an achievement, because, every time, I looked at it from the medical standpoint and from the normal mind and the normal human being, I should have been in the hospital recovering from my knee injury. I should not have been close to a football pitch. But for me to be on that football pitch in Bahrain, I think November 14th or something like that in 2005, helping lead my nation to their first ever World Cup. It was just an unbelievable achievement for me. It was the pinnacle for me in my footballing career, because it was a dream I had as a 13-year-old boy. I said it in the book that I wanted to be part of the team to help my country qualify for the first ever World Cup. And with that happening, it was just the ultimate for me.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you never got to play in the World Cup due to, ironically enough,
Injury,
injury.
yeah. Aye. Obviously, I get injured 48 hours before the game. Obviously, because everybody tell me I should have just take it easy, but because I just the way I play, I'm very aggressive. I tried to run wrong Russell and won the ball from Russell, and I just twisted my knee and I was out. Obviously, I get back fit for the game, but obviously I didn't get on. But just being there was the ultimate for me. As I said, playing in the World Cup would have been the icing on the cake for me. But as I say to people, I don't like icing anyway. So it's still a blessing for me to be at the World Cup because, as I said, it was the ultimate that my country was able to show what my culture is about, the carnival and the way Trinidad and Tobago people are. So my country was on the world stage, and I was very happy to be part of that. And I have no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah, David. I mean that to touch on Marvin's kind of personality and his faith and things, that would have broken quite a lot of players. A lot of players who their goal in life since they were like 13-year-old and want to get to the World Cup. They get their country to the World Cup, and then 2 days before they're making their debut, they've been told they're playing, they get injured, and that's them out and they miss it. That would have probably destroyed a few careers along the way.
It would have done, and I think even injury itself destroys a lot of players. I've spoken to a lot who've been out for long term, and they get depressed because they've got nothing to do. They can't. Players love being in a dressing room. That's where it comes alive for them. They love being on the field, of course, but in the dressing room, training, whatever. So when they can't do that, when they've got to go up to the training ground on their own, for example, and they're missing that, that's when there is a real mental health issue that comes in there. But to compound that and then miss big games is just huge for them. But Marvin just rose through that because it was important for him, not for his own purpose, but for his country to get to the World Cup, which he managed to achieve, which was huge for him. Just touching on a thing, talking about his physicality, incidentally, that was one of the funny things I found interviewing various players that played with him. And Barry's probably the most notable. And Barry says he broke my nose, and I was in the same team as him at training. so players were getting injured when they were in the same team.
Yeah, I mean,
I shouldn't say that.
I mean, Marvin, shortly after that World Cup experience in 2006, that was when you became ordained into the Zion Praise Church in Kirkcaldy. We know that you're now ordained as a minister. You do weddings and baptisms and the odd funeral. Yeah. All that sort of happened hot on the heels of that World Cup, 2006.
Yeah. So after that, obviously I've been ordained. It was well published and stuff. I was in the press. Marvin is an ordained minister. But a lot of people, even after being ordained, a lot of people didn't know I had the qualifications to actually, perform a marriage ceremony and stuff like that. And I think obviously I did one of my mates, mom and dad. I did the renewal of the vows. And after that, obviously, get into the papers, and then obviously it becomes like, world news. Obviously, Marv can do weddings now. So now my diary is constant that people asking me to join them in marriage and stuff like that in different places. And I really enjoy it. It brings great fun to me. I get to share the word of God and share my faith, and obviously, most of all, join a beautiful couple in holy matrimony. So I enjoy it. I do a lot of, obviously, baptisms as well as people do, and the odd funeral, to people who I know and stuff like that. But mostly, obviously, I do a lot of marriages at the moment.
Well, here's another one that you probably don't realise, but Marvin, again, this came through. I did the eulogy for Lando's funeral. Yeah. Marvin spoke on behalf of the players as well. Now, when I was preparing for that, as I always do, I prepared lots of notes and whatever. Marvin just stood up and just spoke. And when he delivers his sermons, he does the same. And I've asked him about this, and he said, well, I just stand up there and the words just come to me. Now, that's an enormous talent to be in that position where, and this is where you rely on your faith as well, to give him the words that are appropriate at that time. So he's a peculiar character in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, it says that in the book, that Marvin he just stands up. It's not, sermons aren't prepared. I mean, I know one or two ministers do other things, and they spend hours and hours and hours preparing the sermons. Marvin just stands up and the words come to them, which again is down to I would imagine the faith that you've got. The words are going to come, which to me is absolutely phenomenal. But again, not wanting to touch too much on what's actually in the book. Something else I wasn't aware of two things I wasn't aware of. First of all, I didn't know Wraith Rovers had a Hall of Fame. And secondly, I had no idea you were in it.
I know. Yeah, as I said, that happened obviously not too long ago. Obviously, being a Hall of Famer at Red Rovers Football Club was amazing for me. As I said, I played for Rangers, which was the biggest club I've played, biggest club team I played for. But I always have a place in my heart for Red Rovers, is because it's the club that gave me the first opportunity to show my qualities as a professional footballer. Obviously, Jimmy Nicol was a Rangers man himself. He was at Red Rovers back then when he saw a bit of talent in me and gave me the opportunity to sign for Red Rovers Football Club. So I always have that special place in my heart to playing for the first professional club in my career was Red Rovers, and obviously to be honoured as a Hall of Fame in Red Rovers. Still live in Kirkcaldy. I'm a local hero, so it's a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it must be. I mean, David, I know you can't walk down the street at Ibrox without people recognising you, but I mean, it must be, 2 or 3 times more than that for Marvin. Even not, I mean, you could probably walk down Kirkintilloch High Street and one or two people will say, David, how are you? But Marvin must get it in spades.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both envy players in that regard as well, to a great extent, Wilf. And I do what I do, but these guys are players. These guys have scored goals, won cups, whatever. I've, from my own perspective, I've just been fortunate enough to be in the club at some of the key times and had a chance to write and meet some of these guys. So, these guys deserve all the adulation they get. There's no question about it. But talking about Wraith Rovers in the Hall of Fame, we should actually have Wraith Rovers in our Hall of Fame, because I was here at Ibrox the night they beat Celtic in the League Cup, and I tell you what, they were our heroes that night as well.
They were my heroes that night as well. Yeah, no, obviously wasn't there, but yeah, that would have been tremendous. Yeah, absolutely tremendous. So I won't take up too much more of your time, gents. I really, really appreciate you coming on and doing this. Doing it from Ibrox is something special as well for us. That's tremendous. But for everybody watching, I'll do a Martin, who's normally on this slot. Get the likes things. We've only got 1 or 2 likes on. Quite a few people watching. It will be available on YouTube after the fact. I know that's when Pitch Publishing are going to be watching it, because again, I'd like to thank Pitch very much for putting this together. Before we go though, on Pitch Publishing, David, were they always going to be the publisher? Were they your publisher of choice, or did you kind of hawk about the place, or did they approach you, or how does that work?
No, I just I'd done a few books for them. I did the Rangers story, the 150th anniversary book as well with them, and so it was just a natural thing. I just said, I'll get these guys to publish it. You don't really make a lot of money out of books. It's not, you don't do them for that reason. I think from a player's point of view, it's to get something on the shelf of their career or whatever. I think it's important, and certainly in Marvin's case as well, to let people understand the background to him. But no, Pitch did a good job in the book, and it was all worked pretty well.
Yeah, well, we're asked very, very early on in the pod by Donald Mackay where should we publish the book. Well, the stock answer to that is at all your usual bookstockists. However, I know you can get it on the Pitch website, and this is when I ask the advertising question: are you doing any more? I know you've done a book launch. Are you doing any book signings? Have you got any of them coming up that you can tell us about?
Yes. So next this week, in fact, obviously I'm in Forge Market Friday and Saturday from 11 till 4. And one of the guys is have a big Rangers guy. He does a lot of artwork and lots of printings and stuff. So I'm at his shop in at the Forge Market this Friday and Saturday, and then obviously Sunday after the game, I'm going to the Bristol Bar to do a signing session there as well. So busy weekend ahead.
Good stuff. So obviously the book's available from Forge Market this weekend, then the Bristol Bar. Obviously, I mean, I don't know, are Rangers going to be stocking it, David? Do you know, or is that?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. The book has been doing very, very well anyway. But I'm not sure if I get Rangers to stock it, they might start buying that book instead of the Rangers story. You never know. But the book's been doing well.
Which is also a thoroughly good book I can recommend as well, because I've actually got the Rangers story down the stairs, and it's a thoroughly good book, as is the Penalty King, as is the Bill Smith book that David's done. In fact, just go into your search engine, search David Mason author, and there's a plethora of really good Rangers books there for you, for your enjoyment. You can also buy it off Pitch Publishing, obviously Amazon, all these sort of places. And I'm sure if you do buy a copy and you're heading to Ibrox, carry it with you, because you're about to bump into Marvin. Just have a pen in your pocket. And I'm sure he'll find it for you. And I saw him on Saturday trying to sign scarves and flags and things. Books are an awful lot easier.
Well, can I just say hi to all the guys in Sydney? I see that there, a lot of them are over there at the club at the moment as well. And I'm going to go to Orsa next year. I was at Hong Kong last year, thoroughly enjoyed it, meeting all the guys over there, and I'm looking forward to Orsa. So hopefully see a lot of them over there. But I know a lot of the guys in Oz, and I'm hopefully going to catch up with some of them. But it's just good to see people from around the world watching this, and we've thoroughly enjoyed it as well, Wilf. It's been great.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
We've got folk watching in from Sydney, and as you say, from all these sort of places. And obviously, because it's not a great time of day for people, we realise that, but it will be on YouTube for time immemorial. So, people will catch up on it. So again, thank you very much, gents, for your time. It's been eye-opening. The book is eye-opening. I mean, I thought I knew Marvin. I thought I knew about Marvin. I didn't have a clue. It's thoroughly well written. It's really, really educational. The faith elements in there, the comments from all the ex-players and managers, really well constructed. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So once again, gents, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Well, if you just hang on there, I'll speak to you again in a couple of minutes. I'll just say goodbye to everybody else. I'll just remove you at the moment. So there you go, folks. That's the Believer in Blue, the Marvin Andrews story, written by David Mason, forward by Barry Ferguson, available from Pitch Publishing, Amazon, wherever else you get your you get your books. So once the podcast's gone, if you could jump back on and give us some likes. Martin always likes his likes, so if you could jump back on, fire in some likes and some comments and things, help the old algorithm. I've got no idea how that works, but apparently that's what happens. The normal Morning Rabble will be back tomorrow morning, 11:30, with, I believe, Martin and the special guest producer Brian, who was a bit late to the party. And yes, Brian, that injury is in the book, because I saw you in the comments. So anyway, folks, thanks very much indeed. I'll catch you all again tonight at 6:30 on the Women's Show if you're about, and we'll speak to you all later.